All right, it is finally ladies' night on the Speedskating video podcast. Let's go. So my guest today had a pretty successful short track and long track junior career. Moved into college soccer, had some injury issues, rejoined the sport later in 2019, and has vaulted all the way to making the U.S. national team this year. So let's bring in Sarah Warren, all the way from
Hello.
Utah.
Yes.
So usually what happens when I do these interviews is I'm going to want to discover, how did you find the sport, right? That's usually a good question to ask. So instead of burdening you with telling the story, I thought we would let younger you tell the story. So
No, okay. I used to play hockey. I was a little tomboy, and I played hockey with the boys because I just wanted to be just like my brother. And the boys got bigger, I kind of stayed the same size, and they started to hit, so my parents kind of thought, like, we probably should stop. And so I was at the rink a couple years later, and I saw speed skating, and I asked my parents if I could try, and they always wanted me to try to do new things. So I tried it the next week, and I fell in love. That was awesome.
Well, thank you for that. So now we know how you found the sport. Yeah. But I think like a lot of junior skaters, you got on the short track first, especially being in Illinois. So you started doing that. How long into it before you decided, hey, I want to get on the oval?
So it was really nice with my club. I started at Glen Ellen. Shout out, they're best club in Chicago. I'm a little biased, but so I started out there, and it was really nice. We had kind of a caravan that would go up to the Pettit Center, and we were young, so it wasn't as serious, but we do the I-94 sprints, we would do the Great Lakes, so we always were trying to compete. And then we got kind of got more serious, where if you wanted to go do time trials, then we'd go up on Fridays, and it got a little bit more serious and more serious as we got older, and I really gravitated towards long track. I loved it, but I also loved the racing component of short track. So I was kind of stuck in between. And actually it was at the Youth Olympic trials and they ended up going great. I mean, I made the team, but it was at that competition, I'm like, I'm done with short track. I'm going to Youth Olympics. I'm going to race it. And I loved it. But in that trials was the moment I decided, like, I am moving solely to long track.
Interesting. And so, I mean, that was pretty far in, right?
Yeah, that was 2012 because it was inaugural Youth Olympics in Innsbruck. And it was a great trial. It was short track, as short track as it can get. I was going against Jackie Chen. We were kind of the two competing for the spot. And she was the 1,500 thousander, and I was the 500 meter and thousander. So we really were competing for that 1,000. And whoever won that, that's who got the spot. And so the 500 occurred. It kind of went the way we expected. I had my start, and I just tried to stay in front. And then we had the 1,000, and I ended up getting taken out in the final in the second to last corner. And a girl came from the back, risky pass, just completely took me out. And at that point, we're like, well, I mean, I thought that's kind of it, and Sue Ellis, it was my box coach at that point, and she's like, know what, you're going to get on the line for the 15, you're going to race hard. That's the Sarah Warren way. You're just going to go out there and leave it all out there. But we kind of knew, and I was really good friends with Jackie at that point, so we were talking before it. I'm like, you deserve it, let's go and have a good race. Well, then in the 1,500, same girl goes and takes Jackie out in the second to last corner. And I ended up winning. Jackie ended up getting the exact place I got in the 1,000, but because of the 500, I ended up going. But so it just wasn't exactly like how you would want to make a team. And I ended up on the better side of the situation. But I remember looking at Jackie after, and I clearly remember it was years ago, being like, this was not how I wanted it to go. And she's the same way. I'm crying after the 1,000, she's crying after the 15. It was just kind of bittersweet. Just because we wanted to fight it out fairly. But I mean, obviously still love short track. That was a fantastic experience in Innsbruck. Probably one of the top 3 moments of my life. But it was at that moment I'm like, I think I'm good with long track, where like if I mess up, it's a me problem. It's not really somebody else that can kind of influence it. We just work too hard, and I don't enjoy that part of short track. It's a good part of it for sure, but it's just not my cup of tea.
Well, why don't you kind of take us through the rest of your junior career then?
So then I skated both, I believe so. I think I still actually did junior trials for short track during my junior career. I wasn't very hyped about short track at that point. Obviously, it just went through all of that, but I still trained it. So I wanted to compete. You know, I did like part of the racing aspect, and juniors never panned out for me in short track. Always would fall. That was usually a me problem. Make a pass, you know, go too wide, just tactics. It's short track. Things happen. So that never really panned out, but long track did. And I think I made my first team as a B2, and we went to Calabo, Italy, and that was super, super fun. My favorite track to skate at by far. Beautiful, and it's outdoors, so it's like not usually me, but it's worth it when you see the mountains. And then I made it as an A1 and A2, and that was in Bjugn, Norway, and then in Warsaw, Poland. And all the experiences were great. My last junior was a little shaky. It was my first year of college, and you know, stepping in as a freshman, you have different responsibilities. And I really could only train from when our season ended in like November to when I would go back home in December to get back on the long track after not being on since the previous season. Wow. So, you know, that was more just, I'm going for the experience. I ended up getting sick during that summer. I had pretty bad bronchitis, so couldn't really train. And still, we trained full-time for soccer in the off season. That is the one part of D1 that made skating a little hard, that we trained every single day. You know, my coaches were great. They let me modify lifting a little bit. But other than that, you're on a team. You know, you have a role on the team. We're working on formations. We're working on different set plays. So I have to be there. I made a commitment. So I kind of decided skating was going on the back burner. And I went to Warsaw just to really have the experience. Great junior team. Eric Sepron, who was my coach, was the head coach of the junior team. So it was a great, great experience. Super fun. Just definitely not the placement I would want to end my junior career on.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's a good segue. So, it's a badass defender for Illinois there. So my question about your transition into Illinois is, who made the first move? Was it Illinois soccer chasing you around, or were you kind of like, hey, pick me?
So no, actually, I would say they chased. They offered, and I ran towards them. Okay. So it was very mutual. I was really okay. I definitely traveled, and soccer was a huge part of my life. I played from the time I was little till obviously after college. But I kind of decided going into, because you go to showcases, you're supposed to write emails to coaches, so they come and see you. And my philosophy was, I was okay going D3 because you get the off seasons off. So it's actually going to go D3 within Illinois and then go and skate in the winter, because we'd have winter completely off, and that way I could still do both. It'd kind of be like I was doing up until that point. So I already kind of talked to schools, and you can't get athletic scholarships through D3. So it's just a verbal commitment. You were saying, hey, I'm interested. I'm still playing the field, but like I'm interested. And I kind of had that going. And it was in my last game in we have a Disney showcase we all go to in Orlando over New Year's. And it was in our last game there that I was actually playing a different position, because we were like winning. I think we were winning by a lot. So my coach said, go try midfield. And I just was making runs up and down the line. I was having the time of my life. And they ended up seeing me that game. And my defensive coach, Jeff Freeman, and they expressed interest, and, you know, I was flabbergasted. I'm like, Big Ten, like Division I, like my home state. Oh, next question. So I immediately fell in love with the campus, fell in love with the team, and committed at that moment. And it kind of fell into my lap, and I was like, oh my goodness. And then I figured out the logistics with skating after, but no, it was They offered and I went running. So I wouldn't say anyone's chasing anyone. If anything, I was chasing them once I got the offer, but
Sure.
yeah, they were the first one for sure.
Awesome. So as a defender, if we would have watched you, would we expect you to be overlapping and running up and throwing in a killer cross, or were you more of a stay at home, just protect the house?
So my tendency is to protect the house, like how we, depending on our system. So we either played a 3-back or a 4-back. And 4-back, I was center back with usually very skilled. My friend Hope was my other center back for a while on the team. She was a year older, one of the best soccer players I ever played with. So it kind of was like, okay, Hope, you set play. I will be the Superman when things break through. So that was kind of like, I was the runner. You know, I ran track. Soccer was kind of actually my third sport growing up.
Really?
I loved it, but yeah, I loved track, ran track, was actually going to run in college, like pursue that. Ended up getting mono during my recruiting year, like sophomore year. And then junior year is kind of when you got to make a decision, and I was getting more traction with soccer. So we kind of went that way. But yeah, so I was definitely more on the athletic side than the skilled side. Like my athleticism was what carried me.
Gotcha.
By the end of my career, we moved into a 3-back. And so that's when I was overlapping. But I did like to stay home more. I definitely was more of the, I'm not going to let the ball go in the back of my net. I'll give you the ball and put it in theirs, but I'll stay back here. We'll be good. We'll be good.
So is it way too easy of a question to ask you if you were a sprinter as a track person?
No, it's not that lazy. So people are actually pretty surprised based on my last lap of 1500 that I was a 400-meter runner. Like that was my bread and butter. I loved it. I loved like the fact you have to outwork the person next to you. And you still had to have speed. It was like 200, 400. And in my conference, I could compete in the 100, I could compete in the 2, but at a state level, the 400 was where I was going to end up excelling if I went to college. So that was my bread and butter. I love the pain of it. You kind of go into it knowing like I have to be the hardest worker on this track, which is, I like to be my motto. So 400 was the bread and butter.
So you certainly haven't taken college like, oh, I'll just take some classes while I'm playing soccer. I mean, clearly from an academic standpoint, you're serious. You know, you got a very solid undergrad, and you have a master's now?
Currently working. I am this class this semester, and then one in the spring, and then I graduate. So almost there. Slowly, but yeah, working towards my master's right now.
But that's Johns Hopkins, right? So this is all remote. Clearly.
Yeah, they have a awesome online remote program. I think they were one of the first to do it. And that's something I really was focusing on. Like, obviously, Johns Hopkins carries the name, which is great in terms of future endeavors. But I actually wanted to learn something. Like, I didn't just want a degree to get a degree. I want something that I can apply. And through research, Hopkins was one of the first that came up with a good model for remote learning. And then COVID hit. So everything went remote. And so it was almost like a step ahead because no one could go into classes. Other people had to kind of figure their classes out. And with Hopkins, they already had this format. So I could go on campus. That was super nice. Like I could go and take all these classes in person. I could do a hybrid. It's totally up to the person. And just because of training and I don't want to miss, obviously it's hard getting on a plane on the legs. And so I do the completely remote, and it's been absolutely awesome. Absolutely like great program. They have it structured really well. What's
the end game? I mean, this is bioengineering. Where are you going with this?
It's a golden question because this is like every Thanksgiving dinner. It's up in the air. It is. It's a very dependent on skating. I always had in my head, I love medicine and I want to be an orthopedic surgeon. It's always been a dream. I've been 10 years old. I got my first knee surgeries then. And I'm like, I am going to be just like, my doctor is Dr. Brian Cole because he changed my life. And I'm like, I'm going to do that for somebody. And that's always still been the dream. That's all of my whole college career, my master's, all of my focuses, my extracurriculars have been focused toward orthopedics. And so that's definitely on the front of the list. Like med school, go and specialize in orthopedics, and then kind of in tissue engineering, dealing with meniscuses and soft tissue, things like that. We use that biomedical engineering knowledge. However, then there's skating, which I love equally as much. And obviously, I'm going for the next four. But if it's going really well at the end of four, I know me, and it's going to be really hard to hang it up. I'm just practical. And so at that point, I mean, I do need to start making decisions, but that's the beauty about bioengineering is med school is always an option, but there are so many different tracks where I can, instead of going to med school, I can actually go work for a company that creates the prosthetics or the soft tissue implants or the systems that then orthopedic surgeons use. So I'm still a part of that process. I'm just a different part. So it might look a little different. 10-year-old me might be a little upset, but we're in the same area.
Well, that's a good segue as well, because I think injury has played a pretty significant role in, I would just say, in your life. So I guess take us through some of these events that have happened to you.
Yeah, so starting when I was 10, I've had knee pain, and I remember I went to a ton of doctors, and no one really knew what was going on. My knees were swelling, and I was a super active kid. And I remember one doctor said, we're just going to do a microfracture, but you probably won't be able to play sports again. And my mom's like, no, that can't work. Like, this child has way too much energy. I already know. We got to figure this out. So we went to Dr. Brian Cole, who's the orthopedic surgeon for the Chicago Bulls, renowned in the field. Like, everyone knows Dr. Brian Cole. We're lucky enough he's in Chicago. And I went, and he figured out I just had an extra lining in my knee, both knees. And so we did a bilateral different times, but he fixed me. And then I had no knee problems from then on. It was great. Fast forward to junior year of college. There was an unfortunate incident in practice where we were doing a drill, ball got underneath me, we're running full speed, and my leg just kind of went backwards and diagonal. It was disgusting. We deleted the practice film. Like, no one should watch that. And in that moment, I knew I tore it. My brother's torn his 3 times. I saw him go through that. And so it was tough. It was tough, but looking back now, it was less tough than the following injury. But so I tore the ACL, determined to come back, got surgery a month later because you do some prehab. Dr. Brian Cole did that surgery. It was amazing, no problems. Came back to soccer. Fast forward, got through one season. The next season back was a little iffy. The knee it's hard to pop back after 3 knee surgeries. We were a little cautious. We kind of knew. And at that point, skating was in my head. I'm like, listen, we got to play this smart. We'll do the necessaries, but any extracurriculars, we're not doing. We had some drills we're cutting that. We're not trying to tear it. So my 5th year, I took a 5th year because I was lucky enough to tear it at a certain point. Final game of the regular season, must win. And we knew a full game was probably too much on my leg. When you get tired, your muscles kind of go, and that's when things happen. But it was a must win. And we're at Nebraska, and 10 minutes left in the game. Ball gets cleared out from across. We're up 1-0. So it's do or die. I'm like, this ball is not getting back in this box. Run full speed out there, cut, the other one tears. And in that moment, it tears. My parents are in the stands, and I yelp. There's a ACL yelp, and they know it. They've heard it 3 times from my brother. They heard it once from me, and they're like, no, it's torn. And that one was tough. That one, there's not a lot of times in my career, any soccer, skating, I'm a confident person. That was the first time I remember I came out of surgery. I looked at my mom and I go, I can't do this. And she looked at me, she's like, honey, you have no choice. Mm-hmm. It's done. They already repaired it. You either come back or you don't, but you got it. You have to. And it was a hard recovery. That one wasn't easy. Dr. Cole did everything right. There's just sometimes the knees just decide not to work, and scar tissue formed. And it was a tough one. And that one, I didn't have range of motion. And then, so I kind of thought, I can't come back to skating. That's kind of it. It stinks, but that's it. And I remember I came home from school. I graduated, came home from school, and I told my parents that, I don't know I don't know if I can do this. And my dad looked at me and said, I can tell you, you might not be able to, but if you don't try, it's going to be the biggest regret in your life. And that next day, no exaggeration, I called Eric Sepron. I said, hey, do you have room for me on the team? And he said, absolutely. When can you get here? And I said, tomorrow. And I went up, stayed in a hotel for 2 weeks until I found an apartment, ordered inline skates off of Amazon. And we started the journey there, and it was tough. You saw my first year back. I ended up getting surgery in October of that year just because we had no range of motion. I was blessed enough to work with Julie Carpenter, who is one of the greatest humans on this planet. If you have an opportunity ever to meet her or work with her, take it and run, because she is an angel and one of probably the best in the field. And she worked with me and got me back. So I couldn't really skate. I skated some, but it wasn't effective. Like, if you can't get in position, it's not effective. And so the first year was all prehab back, and got the knee to a point that I could really start training again. And I moved out here, and honestly, the knee's been great. I have little injuries here and there. Every skater does. But other than that, like, my knees are good. If you work, if you stay on top of it, that's the thing. You have to really stay on top of your recovery. And I see Feet Gray more than probably he wants me to. I just waddle on in there, and I'm like, problem child's here. We get like 3 injuries. Every other PT works with something different. But you just stay on top of it. And the medical team here is unbelievably awesome. They can, any ailment, they'll fix. So the knees are no issue now. But it's been a long
Good Lord.
too many years of knee injuries.
What was the date of that last one?
The last one?
The surgery.
The surgery, so I should remember the specific day. I remember the only, the thing I remember is I either had surgery or tore it the same exact day I made my first World Cup team to the date. And I have them written down on my phone. It's probably not healthy. You have that Apple anniversary, it'll pop up and it's like ACL surgery, which is not healthy. I do not recommend that. But I remember that day I made the team. I think it wasn't the official day team was announced, but we knew certain placements within distances. And it was to that date I made my first World Cup team. So I think it was mid-October. I had this either tore it or I had the surgery.
Okay. So really about a year or less than a year, you were back racing again, because a really important date in Sarah Warren's career has got to be October 5th, 2019, because you and I were paired together in a 500.
Yes.
And I don't want to ruin your image, but
I'm pretty sure you beat me.
You have a mouth about as foul as mine, and my expectations were extremely high that season. And I thought, I broke 40. And I did a 42.2, and you did a 43.4.
Mm-hmm. I clearly remember that day.
we were unconsolable. We were not happy.
Yeah. No, we were not. And that was a tough one, because you come back and you're unrealistic. I'm I can't even bend in position. And I'm I got this. I am good to go. And I come across the line and I'm okay, that's where we're starting. That's super fun.
Well, it's kind of interesting that on the very same track, a couple of years later, you went 38.6.
Yeah, so that was actually probably one of my most fun races I've ever had. I was terrified, and I'm usually terrified for myself, but it's Olympic trials, and I'm with the queen herself. Brittany's been one of my idols since I was little. When people are who do you look up to? And it's Brittany. And it's kind of weird now because I race her. So it's full circle. And I remember getting on that line and I had inner and she had outer. And I was I need to have the best starter in corner of my life, because if I interfere with Brittany during Olympic trials, I'm never going to, is unforgivable.
Yeah,
so
no
I
pressure.
remember before I looked at Mitch and I go, I'm about to have the best 250 of my entire life. And he goes, okay, sounds good. And I was okay. And I think it was I was pure. I was come on, Sarah, you gotta go. But it was one of the most fun races by far. Full circle moment for sure.
Well, last year, I feel was, such a breakout for you. You got to skate 4 World Cups in the fall. What do you remember about those? What did you learn?
Uh, Making the team, there was a certain level of thankfulness. I clearly remember that. It was one of those moments. I'm not a happy crier, never have been. And I cried just because you think of, like, we just talked about my first race back, and we talked about all of those small steps leading up to that. And it was just one of those, like, I finally felt that thankfulness for skating. And I've always loved it, but that was one point I've always taken from that, is how thankful I am to be here. And how thankful I am for the journey, because it made that moment so much sweeter. And then overseas, I'm a competitive person, always have been. But, there's A group and B group. And for your first World Cup, every veteran, no one would ask, like, how did the race go? They would just say, did you have fun? And that was something that that's not really how I view racing. I go out there to win. I might not be able to win, but I'm going to go out there to the line thinking I can win. And I've never really viewed racing as like, oh, it's just an experience. And there's a way to do that and still be competitive. And I think that's what I've really pulled from the World Cups. Like, I had one race where you're racing for 10th place in B group, because there's some of us, like, from 8th to 16th, it's super close. And so that's kind of what you're racing. You're like, I'm going to do super well in this group. And I remember in Norway, I had a drag race down the last 100. And usually old Sarah, like junior Sarah, would be like, oh my goodness, I'm going to be 10th to 16th. But, like, I was so happy in that moment, just because I got to compete with some of the best in the world and people who are on the same steps that I'm taking. Like, no, we're not there yet. We're not at the Brittany's and the Aarons, but we're working our way. And so I clearly remember really taking the whole experience as an experience, really working on the competing, working on the race execution, but also having fun and realizing, like, this is probably the only World Cup that I can come here and just say, I want to go and compete. I want to go and have fun, and I want to learn something each race, and really taking the where we are. I've never been to Norway, so really taking that in, meeting people, just experiencing the whole thing, because the stress really was the lowest it probably ever will be on that stage. And so I really remember that. But that's just because of the teammates around me. They didn't have to help. They're there to win. Like, theirs is stressful. Like, they're there to go get, it's gold or bust. And, and they really took the time to be like, you need to slow down and you need to appreciate what you accomplished and appreciate where you are and take it all in. And it's funny, there's positive, negatives every place you go. But all the rookies, it was all positive. Like, we had zero negatives. Like, even in some things, the veterans would be like, oh, like, this is so, we loved it. And I just remember it, like, we go and do things like Cooper and I would want to go see these huge swords in Norway. Like, they're on the coast, which is super cool. Destiny and I would go on walks. We had that ability just because we were really there for the experience. Wanted to compete, but I clearly remember really finding the love for skating in those races, because you really were racing just to have fun and going out and doing the best you can to represent your country.
Yeah, I can't imagine what it would be like to come from where you came from with, how many times you need to be knocked down?
It really only matters how many times you get up. It can knock me down as many times as you want. I'm a walking catastrophe sometimes. A sprained ankles walking down the street. But, as long as you get up and you hobble off, people tend to forget the getting knocked down if you get back up pretty quickly.
Well, like you said, you had a really good Olympic qualifier. Certainly the World Cup stuff was all great. And then, then this happened. So
yes.
How does that work? Does Ryan just come up to you someday and just go, hey, what are you doing next season?
No, it's actually a little bit more stressful. You wait for a call or an email. So like, when meetings are kind of happening, but you don't know. They're, especially with the girls, like, our girls are so good. If you look at the World Cup standings, look at the Olympics, like our girls are unbelievable. So, it's one of those things that you work, but there's still a gap, and there's a gap and the gap is evident. And so you never know, like it can go either way. And so you're just really hoping like you put in enough time and effort, your times are fast enough, your attitude's good enough, you'll be a beneficial member to that team. And so you're waiting, and you just don't know if they haven't made the call or they're still deciding. So I remember that was pretty stressful. And I was actually in Italy when I got the call from Matt, and it was one of the, actually I didn't have my phone at the time, if I'm being honest. I never on my phone, and so I didn't have my phone on me, and I missed the call. So I want to clarify that. But he left a voicemail, and I remember listening to it and just tears came down my face. I ended up getting the email right after, and it's a real moment. It's one of those moments that you dream of. Like you're skating at the Pettit Center, you see them come and visit, and you're like, gosh, I want to be on that team. Like I want to be them. And then that moment happens. You're like, I can be one of them. Like it was really full circle. And I mean, such an honor. It was something, it's a hard feeling to describe. There's very few times I'm ever lost for words. I'm a talker, but I was lost for words. I remember I was with my dad and I looked at him, he goes, "What's wrong?" And I couldn't even like get the words out. And so that was a fun time. I mean, it was a full family victory, like the sacrifices my parents make, the resources they give me to be here. It was a full family. It was a full team. I have so many people who participated in that. I've named a few with Eric and Julie. Mitch was obviously a huge component of that, and his belief in me. And so it was really a full circle moment of just thinking of all the components that fit together to allow that moment to happen.
Thank you for sharing that. That was cool. I really had no idea, I assumed it wasn't just Ryan going, "Hey, what are you doing?"
I would be camping out at the Oval. I would be camping out at the Oval. That's how it was. I'd be like, "Hello, Ryan. I'm here again."
Hey, Ryan guy. Yeah, hello. Let's go wakeboarding.
Exactly.
All right. So, last thing I have for you, I thought maybe we could have some fun.
Okay.
I put together some stuff, some video components here, and I'm going to show you something that I actually have done with my own skating before. We'll probably have to play it a couple times because you're probably not going to know what the hell's happening. But let's just start with something really simple. I just want you to take a look at your own opener here. So when you look at that, what do you see? What do you like? What don't you like?
So at that point, I was really happy with, even though I still have a fast tempo, I slowed it down. I was happy with the initial part of each of the pushes, activating the hip, getting over the push, still could get better, but, that weight transfer was occurring. So I do really like that. The blades were coming straighter. And I like the power off the line. I like the pressure and just like the gung-ho of the start. It's just everything you absolutely have. And I was really happy with that, the execution of that start. And there's no slips, which is rare. So I was really happy with that part of it. Okay.
So let's take a look at a corner here. It's actually the same race, but I find that a lot of times when athletes look at each other, they tend to admire the things about others that they don't do well. So when I watch your corner here, particularly your right, it stays down and you're getting something out of it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I'm not burdened with getting anything out of my right in the corners, so that represents tremendous upside for me. Although short track seems to be fixing that. So, but this isn't about me. So when you look at your corners, what do you like about your corners right now? What's improving? Where are you taking them?
So we're working on the hips in the corner. That is something that is not synonymous with soccer, surprisingly. Like, so those little muscles, and the right push has figured itself out. Obviously, there's parts to it. You got to keep that right hip coming forward. You know, it's not the quads. And there's times I really executed that, but that left push and me are working ourselves out. You know, we are trying to figure it out. And so, you know, keeping those hips, if you watch that clip, you'll really see the hips moving. And you'll have a good right, but you'll see me lose it. And the right's only as good as the left. You know, if you only have half of the corner, you're working doubly as hard to go the speed you want to go.
Yeah.
And so we're really working on keeping those hips stable, keeping that lean, and really utilizing the corner itself, you know, not working against the corner, but working with the corner. So, and that's all in the hips. So keeping those stable, you know, really working on that left, and not allowing that hip angle to break, in the corner.
So now I'm going to share something with you that is, I've done this with my skating before. It's kind of silly, but I wanted to compare your opener to another skater. So I thought, why not pick one of the fastest openers of all time? So this is Sang-Hwa Lee, actually, when she did her 36-36. So, but I think it's kind of interesting. Let's watch it and see if we can get anything out of this.
And the women go the entire field without a false start again today. Sang-Hwa, such nice technique, skates
so 10-0.
Yeah, no big deal.
Pretty decent. So I watched that one, you know, a number of times. Once I finally got it synced up and captured it, and you know, clearly she's incredible. If you've ever studied her and you watch her start, the dynamics of what she's doing to me is just incredible. And if you stop motion it and just see, you know, the extension she's getting with incredible cadence, it's just phenomenal. And staying low the whole time, it's like it's unreal.
Yeah, no, it's wild. And that, I mean, that's the key, you know, getting that cadence with getting a full push, staying over the hip, and the whole time you're as low as you possibly can be. So that hip strength has to be stellar.
Yeah.
You know, and it all has to come together.
So the last little bit that I have here is a little bit of you right off the line.
Okay.
And a little bit of Sang-Hwa. See anything there, or is it too grainy? And
no, I definitely saw. I mean, she's the golden answer, right? Like that's what you want. And the thing I really admire about her is, if you look, nothing breaks. So when I come off the line, you know, there's some movement and it's powerful, but the extension is minimal to a point. And keeping the hips under, keeping that rounded back while trying to push. It's not a running excel. It's a skating start. And so that, I would say, is the biggest difference there. You know, it's the initial part of the stroke is great, but you gotta extend it through with power, with pressure, with those hips coming through, and then you can open up 10-0. So I mean, that would be the goal. But yeah, that would be the biggest difference I see, is just, you know, she comes off the line and it's powerful, it's quick. She's not a skate off the line, you know, it's not slow, but she still gets that full extension with that hip extension. It's not just the leg and the clap opening, it's that hips coming through too, and that's really where all of her power's coming.
Yeah, and really, I mean, you know, she's airborne for about 2 or 3 strokes, and then it's just fast, unbelievable skating from that point forward. And I'm just like, I don't know how to do that. I have a bunch of cadence, but I look at my stuff in slow motion, and my extension is 0. It's like
I'm
chop,
right there
chop,
with you.
chop, chop, you know, and it's so frustrating. Do you guys do much video work?
Oh, a ton. I mean, that
Okay.
is actually the biggest difference. Mitch would utilize it as much as we could. It's just there's a ton of people, and two coaches. But we have the opportunity. We have a system where we can actually pull our videos, be great videos for us a ton. And so mostly every one of our efforts is videoed, which is great. And that's how I learn. I'm a visual learner. So that's actually been the biggest difference coming to national team is how much that is utilized. And it's great. And it's not something where Ryan's like, we're going to go do video. And it's not like a forced thing, but it's something like you can utilize on your own. So we'll get sent the videos, you can download them, you can play them a million times. And I mean, there's a point, to video. You got to learn to feel it too. But it's really
Yeah.
nice to be able to say, I'm working on X. And you pull the video and you're like, eek, like that didn't really hit it. So let's try to focus on Y and see if we can make that work. So yeah, we utilize video a ton. It's a great tool, huge part of learning, especially in the developmental stage, learning, just because I don't have that feel yet. Like I have the years on the ice as a junior, but you come back hurt, you come back with different aches and pains and different mobility, and the feel's definitely different. And so it's nice to be able to see exactly what a coach is telling you is happening or get what you're feeling. And then you can start lining things up so you can function without having video and learn.
So this is the first leg of another quad, and you're smiling.
Yep. I'm happy. I'm excited.
You're pretty healthy. So what's it going to take to call this year a success?
There's always the golden question, right? Like what's the goal? Obviously I want to try and make the World Cup team again. That was a great experience. I think it's unparalleled in the racing experience. And, I think my form, I kind of lost in my form last year in the World Cup circuit just because you're trying to race fast. I know put me on a line. There's only so much that goes through my head. But I ended up with a PB at the end. And I think that was purely because of race experience. At a high level, you learn to function under a great deal of stress, and you learn to experience every part of racing. So obviously I want to make the World Cup for that. I want to be competitive. I want to make those strides. But at the end of the day, I just need to get faster. I want to make a World Cup. I want that experience, but I don't want to just be in B group in a World Cup.
Yeah.
I want to go be competitive, and we have all of the rabbits in front of me at the Utah Oval. We have top 10 in the 3 girls, top 10 in the world. So it's a beautiful thing that, yes, I want to make the World Cup and I want to go compete, but for success for me would be those PBs are dropping. Those PBs are dropping, and I know why they're dropping.
Yeah.
I figure out the fundamentals of skating so I can apply them. So each year I get faster, because the goal at the end of this is not only make an Olympic team, it's to go medal. I don't want just to go experience it. I want to go be competitive.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love my times right now, but I'm not there. And so we got to make some jumps. So it's easy to focus on the accolades, the teams, the placements, but you can have the same placement and not be faster. And that, to me, that would be a success. So
Right.
I just got to get faster. I got to get faster in all the distances I do, because that will be a direct indicator that the form's getting better. I'm figuring out that left in the corner, figuring out that extension. And I'm putting all the pieces together. So this 4-year journey is a 4-year journey, and not getting stuck on, a time trial first year of the quad, or even a major competition the first or second year of a quad. Like, it's a journey, it's a process, and if you're saying that, then mentally you need to expect that. And so obviously want that team. I want to be on that team, and I want to work for it and want to get faster, but I wouldn't even call it a success if that's the only thing that happens. Like, those times have to drop. And so, I mean, but I've got the best ingredients to do that right now with my coaching, my teammates. I mean, I can't ask for a better situation. So I'm hoping that all of these parts of the puzzle are coming together and we're going to have a good year.
Have you been on the treadmill?
I have. I had some experiences I love the treadmill. I've had some experiences. If you ask last year, I'm a big thing. If I fall, I don't hit my knees. Like, we know, like, it's an innate part of my head that I'm like, no knees. And so I end up falling, and most people fall and just fall forward, and it should catch you. Like, you're like right here. It's like a little bit too close for me, but like it should catch you, and your skates are rolling and you're just like flying there. Nope, I don't trust that. So I fall, I swing off to the side, grab the rope, and I'm hanging like a monkey and swinging back and forth. And same day I got back on. I'm like, I can't end my treadmill at that. So I'm a big fan of the treadmill. People vary. Some people don't need it. I didn't grow up on inlines, so inlining outdoors is a whole different animal for me. So the treadmill is really nice because there's no rocks, there's no wind, and you can see yourself in that mirror. And I think it really helps with the straightaway timing. And getting that feel. So I'm a big fan of the treadmill.
Well, I know it's got to be challenging as hell the first time, because I've seen some skaters on there who I have tremendous respect for that look like Bambi. So it tells me that it's scary AF the first time you get on it, and it has to be, right?
It's scary every time.
Yeah. Second question, the have you done the overspeed thing with the winch?
Not yet. I don't know if Ryan's got that brewing. You know, other skaters use it. I have not personally yet. It hasn't been it's not a part of like what we're working on right now for me. But that looks, we talk about it. I always say, like, if you put me on the winch, you better put me in a Michelin suit, because I'll go for it. But I need something that like expands with me if I fall. Like, I need a built-in airbag.
The Canadians were doing it today, and it just looks so damn dangerous. But
you have to be good. Joey does it. I mean, you've seen videos of Joey, and he'll do it, you know. But shout out to Joey. I mean, he is some of the best form in the world. So I watch him do it, and I learn through visualization like what I should be doing. But you know, I'm good with my Michelin suit off the ice. I think I got to figure out, the boys are pretty nice in the fact of following them. I think that's kind of like my winch. You know, if they drag me along in their draft, I'm going faster than I probably will. For a bit. So they're my winch right now. Shout out to my teammates. Like, they definitely, overspeeds with them are a built-in winch for me without the need to set anything up.
Did you ever think in your life that there would be so many videos of you puking?
No. Oh, Ryan and that puke cam and me. It's funny. You know, he is a ninja. Like, he will find you. Like, I try, like, after the Wingate, I'm like, I'm going to throw up. Like, I'm going to throw up. That was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And so I like crawl outside. I'm like, he's not going to find me. And I hear my teammates don't help. They're in the background. They're like, Ryan, she's about to throw up. And I am like, I remember rolling my eyes. I was leaning over. I'm like, I'm going to get caught. And so you really try not to. Like, on the ice, if I'm dry heaving, I keep it on the back stretch. Like, I'm like, I'm not getting caught. But we'll call each other out. You know, Austin's also one. He's a puker. And so you're not going to be the only one on the puke cam. You're going to make sure everyone else is too. So, no, yeah, I didn't think I would be known for that. I've never really been a puker, but these workouts just are hitting a little bit differently. So, yeah, you know, you got to be known for something. So it's my crawling and my puking. So that's super fun.
And 4,000 surgeries.
Yeah, then that too. So, you know, you got to make your mark. So that's mine right now. Hopefully it's fast times in the future.
Yeah. Well, the number of times that you've been knocked off course and gotten back up is inspiring.
Thank you.
And it doesn't surprise me that you're still moving forward. I didn't get to spend a lot of time with you, but you know, I saw a fierce work ethic when we crossed paths, and I think you're going to do well. I'm excited for you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're going to get another World Cup team, and then the pressure will, then the expectations will be a lot higher. So you got that going for you.
They always are. That's a fun pressure, you know, like you welcome that. You know, you got it. You got to embrace that. It's not a fear, but it's like that want to do great, and it's what drives me. I love it. I love that, like, you're sitting on the line and you just want to go. Oh, I live for it. So I'm welcoming some expectations, you know. Those help me get better.
Well, I hope to see you in Utah. Are you coming to Milwaukee?
Yeah, so we're coming. We just got an email. We're coming out on the 17th. So
Awesome.
we'll be out there for 2 weeks. I think we're having a time trial out there. We're doing a little bit of a training camp. So yeah, it
Cool.
should be super fun. We're, Milwaukee is my home. I love it. My little dungeon in me. So yeah, I always love a good trip to Milwaukee. I love lowland ice. So super excited. I think it'll be fun. It'll be fun to, bring the whole Utah and Milwaukee back together and have people training together. So
Yeah.
super excited. Yeah.
Cool. Well,
So yeah, definitely will see you.
look
out
upstairs. There will be.
Definitely will. You guys have the nicest training area there. I see you guys.
Yeah.
I'm like, that looks beautiful.
It's cool to be part of something.
Absolutely. It's
All
super
right.
cool team.
Well, you ready to call it a wrap?
Sounds good. Thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it. I mean, it's always an honor to talk about the journey and everything, so people know it's not a straight path.
Yeah.
There's going to be ups and downs and rolling down the hill, and you got to crawl your way back up. So thank you so much for letting me tell my story. It means a lot.
All right, Sarah Warren, we are out of here.
Yeah.